So here we are. This behind me is not Nebraska, the regular Springsteen album from 1982 that he recorded by himself in a 4-track recorder in Colts Neck, New Jersey. That's on here, but so is an album of demos, outtakes from those same 4-track recording sessions that yielded Nebraska. There's also a 2025 version of Springsteen doing this again in an empty theater, trying to kind of recapture some of this, but 43 years later. And there's a Blu-ray performance of that as well. And, of course, the thing that most people have been waiting for, there is something called Electric Nebraska on here. Now, I think Electric Nebraska, especially for people that maybe didn't quite identify with this album as much as they did with Born to Run and Darkness on Edge of Town and some of those earlier Springsteen records, this was going to be the moment, right, where you're going to hear what these songs could have sounded like had they been recorded in a similar manner and had they had the E Street Band on them. And of course, we've heard electric versions of these songs that Springsteen's done with the E Street Band in concert over the years now, but people were wondering, what did these sound like? And you had Max Weinberg occasionally seemed like he was the biggest champion for this, talking about these songs and how good these takes were. And of course, coming off of The River and just a few months later, 6 months later, when the bulk of this was recorded or tried with a band, they were just running on all cylinders. They were a band that could adapt very easily in the studio and run through songs incredibly quickly and nail it. I mean, look at and the song Born in the USA was done in one take, the one that's on the title song, the one that's on Born in the USA, the album that followed this. So yeah, it's a big deal to get Electric Nebraska. I had this shipped to San Francisco because I was in San Francisco last week. Had a really good time, saw a bunch of old friends and met some of my partner's friends. We both lived there at different times in our lives, and the first time that we went back together, so it was really cool. And I was debating, like, do I have this shipped to the hotel? I was leaving on Saturday. This came out on Friday, and I decided to have it shipped. I just couldn't wait. I didn't have a turntable in the hotel room, but streaming, here on the West Coast, 9 p.m. instead of midnight due to the time differences on Thursday, the album's come out. So I'd been listening to it. I got kind of a sneak preview of most if not all of Electric Nebraska ahead of time. And so I've been living with that at least for a little while, and then got to hear everything else. I just couldn't wait for the liner notes and to see the whole package too. So it did arrive, thankfully. And then I spent the weekend listening to the records, and went to see Deliver Me From Nowhere on Friday night while still in San Francisco. And this weekend when I got back here, it was like cold and rainy and good fireplace, kind of listening to Nebraska kind of weather, drinking green tea and other assorted beverages, and just getting to know this, especially all the outtakes, all the new stuff on here a little bit more, watching that Blu-ray of Springsteen performing and thinking a little bit more about Deliver Me From Nowhere. After a few days, wondering like just how it resonates, and maybe being a little bit more critical of it than I was when I originally left the theater, where I was just kind of like, wow, that was incredible, it was exceptional, I really liked that, and kind of just trying to put all this in perspective. So this is why this video is like a little bit later than I originally planned. I mean, I planned on shooting this in San Francisco and posting it on Friday, but hey, I think this video might be better because I waited a little bit and can talk about the stuff a little bit more intelligently. Maybe we'll see. Nebraska. Okay. Most of us know the background. If you don't, Nebraska was recorded after The River, after Springsteen had a top 10 hit with Hungry Heart. First time he'd had a real hit like that, even though, he was on the cover of Newsweek and Time Magazine 50 years ago with Born to Run. This still put him in a different league. This was, non-stop kind of radio play, Hungry Heart. I do remember being a little kid and hearing that on the radio a little bit, although I'm probably getting it confused, if I'm being honest, with when Live 75-85 came out. I have very clear memories of that being an advanced song and hearing that live version a lot in the lead up to that record. So yeah, he's got a massively successful tour. He's not playing, I don't know, it's in the movie they make it seem like he's playing very small venues. That's not really true. I'm sure he was playing, you know, big halls, if not maybe some arenas, at least in the Northeast. But he hadn't gone to global superstardom the way that he would just 2 years later with Born in the USA. So, or I'm saying 2 years later from 1982 when this record came out. But River came out in 80, but the tour wrapped up in like September of 81. So he rents a house, lives alone there in Colts Neck, New Jersey. I always pictured it as being maybe a little bit more suburban. In the movie, it's nice. I mean, it's really nice. It's got tons of windows and open light. I don't know if that was the case or not. It also overlooks a lake, which is beautiful, and he's sitting out there on the pier sometimes. Although, hey, this is a very dark time for him, and most of it, he's staying up late. He's watching the movie Badlands, which seems to be airing all the time on TV, at least in the movie. And he's at the library. He's researching Charles Starkweather. I'm sure, he's reading the newspapers. The United States is not really in a good place economically at that time. It's kind of very similar to now. You had a new regime taking over. A lot of things were changing. And he immersed himself in writing and wrote just a ton of material. And so much so that I still know with this being released and everything, and Born in the USA, and tracks from 1998, and the extras on this, we still don't have all the songs that were written and recorded around that time. So, but this is quite the collection, and definitely worthy for anyone who's looking for an expanded version of Nebraska or expanded story around that time. Deliver Me From Nowhere, I read the book about a year ago and absolutely loved it. There's also another book I read on Nebraska, which I can't seem to find, but it was more of an academic study on it. I've always been fascinated by that record. That's the one, Nebraska is a record, other than Tom Joad. That was probably my introduction to a Springsteen that was different. You could say I go back and forth. Definitely different from Human Touch and Lucky Town, the singles anyway, and definitely different from Born in the USA, the more bombastic, Bruce Springsteen in the E Street Band. And yeah, that album, it goes to Tom Joad right around that time. That's what led me into Nebraska. And for me, it's my favorite kind of Springsteen. So I'm right for this kind of thing. I couldn't wait for this to come out. I think in some ways people, that are more not so much Springsteen fans of the mellower acoustic stripped down stuff, but of the more rock albums, were especially waiting for this because this was that. But as far as the movie goes, I walked out of it thinking it was excellent. And I texted a couple of friends. I've thought about it a little bit more over the next couple of days, and my opinion has changed a little bit. I'm going to have spoilers here. I mean, we know the story, but if you don't want to know anything, I'll put a time mark kind of over my face here to let you know when you can tune back in if you want to not have any spoilers about the movie. The movie opens with him playing the last show on the River Tour. He comes off stage, he's exhausted. He doesn't want to talk to reporters. They want to interview him. He's kind of trying to put him off a little bit. And Landau his manager hands him keys to a rental house in Colts Neck, New Jersey, where he's going to retreat to for the next several months. Probably, I would guess, close to a year. Yeah, probably a year or more. Tour wrapped up in September 81, and he started, he's alone in this house, which I must say in the movie, it's much more elegant than I remember reading about. It's got these huge open windows, lots of sunshine is streaming in. It's on a lake, kind of a private lake. It seems like kind of an ideal place to unwind after a tour, but his depression is getting the best of him. He's realizing, he can no longer kind of blend in with normal people. It's obvious when he's joins a local band on stage. think it was pretty much every Sunday night. The crowd's getting bigger and bigger coming to see him because they keep hearing that he's showing up. People honk horns, people scream out his name, and he's just kind of going through something. He watches Badlands on TV, the movie, with Charlie Sheen and Sissy Spacek, and he's writing these really dark lyrics, kind of exploring his childhood, his relationship with his dad quite a bit. One thing they left out, which I think is such a core part of the movie and this album too, from what I read, especially in the book Deliver Me From Nowhere, was his grandparents' house, because he was primarily raised, he went back and forth a lot, but especially his younger years, it seemed like he was raised by his grandparents, who spoiled him rotten because they had lost a child, which had a profound effect, on the grandparents. They're kind of frozen in time, and so was the house. It was like that imagery I thought was supposed to inform this album a lot more than his relationship with his father. But you have to condense things, and obviously his relationship with his dad is huge, and we talked about it in concert. He's written songs about it. If you're a Springsteen fan, you know that. I'm just surprised they didn't play that up a little bit more. Lots of things are consolidated. For me, and I love this originally, when I walked out of the theater, I thought it was great. Given a little bit more time to think about it, my opinions have changed a little bit. Yes, the movie's about Springsteen, and yes, the album's about Springsteen, but the album is about so much more than that. It's all these character studies, it's people leading desperate lives, it's darkness, and I think the movie would have done a much better job had it brought in a little bit of that, instead of just focusing on the turmoil kind of going on with Bruce Springsteen. I mean, you look at the cover of the record here, dark, it's cloudy. I wish they'd play more with like that imagery, maybe shot it in black and white. They did with the flashback scenes, but that's about it. But I think these 4 lines from Johnny 99, I just wish the producers, the director, had maybe focused on these 4 lines to bring in another element to this movie. And these 4 lines are, now Judge, I got debts no honest man could pay. The bank was holding my mortgage and they were taking my house away. Now I ain't saying that makes me an innocent man, but it's more than this that put that gun in my hand. I think that's so key. It's so key. It's like he paints 3-dimensional characters here, rich characters you don't forget. He introduces them at the beginning, like, my name is Joe Roberts. It's like, okay, Joe's story. These are like people that are leading these desperate lives, desperate economic times, kind of a darkness kind of washing over the country, new people in charge in the government, lots of unemployment. I mean, I don't know that it's that dissimilar from what's going on right now. But there's none of that. You don't really see any of that in the movie. You see more of just him wrestling with fame and him going through depression. I realize I have to consolidate some stuff. But I wish, here's my number one thing about the movie. I wish it was more of an art house movie. I wish it was more independent. I wish it had, some reviews are saying this. These are not necessarily my words, but they're spot on. I wish that it was as daring as the album Nebraska is. It's a rather conventional movie that you could just, some people say there's going to be a sequel. I hope there's not. But you could see the same kind of approach, same director, same look and feel, kind of going for the album Born in the USA as a sequel to it. And I think Nebraska deserved a little bit better than that. There are some amazing moments. When Springsteen kind of crashes his car, comes close to, and just freaks out. There's a moment also in the therapist's office. It's really intense. The best performance, I thought, was Born in the USA, the version that's on the album Born in the USA in the studio. That was just, as far as performances with a band, that to me was the best one for sure. I didn't care at all for most of the live performances, either on the last show of The River when they did Born to Run, or they did a version, they did something, I'm trying to remember what it was, on Born in the USA. That didn't really do it for me either. And then those versions of the band at the Stone Pony, those audiences seemed a little phony. They're nobody's holding a beer, everybody's hands are just, it's like, it just doesn't seem realistic to me for an audience, and I was just kind of annoyed by the look of the band in the Stone Pony. So that was a highlight. I do wish that the movie had gone more into like the howls and the textures of Nebraska, as well as, like I said, the stories, the characters, what was happening in the country. Um, Highlight the lyrics a little bit more. They did it with Mansion on the Hill. They definitely did it with like My Father's House. But let's talk about Joe Roberts. Let's look at these characters he was creating, because I think we're missing a little bit of that. But as a movie, as a deeper dive into Nebraska, hell yeah, I'm on board because I want to know more about this. And I did enjoy the movie. I thought Jeremy Allen White was fantastic. I did like the manager, although I don't, I did, but I was also annoyed by him. Fortunately, a lot of his more annoying um, things he said were kind of cut from the trailers, like there's a hole in the floor in his bedroom, and Bruce is gonna fill that hole, and or something about like, and he's gonna change the world with Born in the USA. Like that over the top kind of stuff was eliminated, which is nice. Although I would like to see those scenes now, maybe in a special deluxe edition sometime. My hope is that there's more movies about Nebraska, because I think it deserves maybe not a Hollywood movie, but like a good documentary or something. I hope it's not the final say for on Nebraska as far as a video or movie goes. Okay, let's get into the actual album. The first disc we have is the outtakes. These are other 4-track recordings. These are songs that were likely on that original tape. One of the things a box set does, it shows half of the letter that Springsteen wrote to John Landau detailing the songs, which is kind of weird. Like, let's see the other half. I've been looking for it online. I checked out Deliver Me from Nowhere, so I don't own that book, but I know it was reproduced in there. Anyway, um, starting off, we have Born in the USA. This is the demo version. This is a version that was on tracks in 1998, although I think it's a little bit different. Maybe it fades a little bit differently. I'd have to compare them, but the more I hear this version, I mean, the more I love it. When I saw him on Tom Joad, this is before tracks came out, he did this kind of version of Born in the USA and completely changed the song, and the meaning was crystal clear. It is crystal clear on this demo version. I'm really happy that they included it. Losing Kind, it's similar to other songs that are on Nebraska. I can see why it's cut, but it just sounds great. It doesn't have a really that developed of a chorus, but it's a great story. Really glad it's on here. Very cohesive. Downbound Train, you hear a couple times. You hear on this version of these outtakes from the 4-track stuff. You also hear on Electric Nebraska. I think it's good. It's nice to hear it. A little bit more of like a rockabilly kind of more of a faster song. Child Bride I find really fascinating. I guess it was later on worked up into Working on the Highway. I have not really seen that myself, but I've not looked closely at the two songs. I never really cared that much for Working on the Highway. Um, Pink Cadillac. Pink Cadillac is one of those songs that was a B-side on Born in the USA, but seemed to get about as much attention as the singles that were on Born in the USA. And I hated it. Hated it. It's up there with Glory Days for me, of just that bombastic, obnoxious Springsteen that I just, Baby's Got a Pink Cadillac. It was just like dumb to me. I just did not like it. And I rarely listened to it. I've avoided it whenever I could. I like it on here. I like the stripped down version. I like the sexual innuendo. It works for me. And maybe it doesn't for other people. I like it here. And I don't care if I ever hear the other version again, but it kind of works here. I like it. Big Payback is pretty cool. I did not know that single, so it fits in just naturally with the rest of the songs here. Working on the Highway, I think it's again more of a kind of slightly like rockabilly, kind of more upbeat thing. And then you get On the Prowl, which is like this sort of looking for someone, like hunger, sexual hunger, looking for a partner, being on the prowl. Maybe there's a certain darkness to it, like he's like using people, and you got to kind of wonder with some of the scenes with Faye Composite character in Deliver Me From Nowhere if that's not trying to represent sort of the way that he was, I guess, experiencing a lot of relationships at the time, somewhat disposable. A lot of insecurities prevented him from getting close to people. You know, don't really show it in the movie, but I would think that fame would be a lot of it too, right? Trying to, oh, they do kind of get into it. Trying to be a guy that is a normal guy from Jersey that would date some normal person from Jersey, but having a real hard time because he's somewhere else. And um, I would think it'd be hard to relate to people, which it was for him. But it's kind of ironic after marrying a born in the USA type character for his first marriage, he went back to maybe more of a Nebraska, well, person from Jersey anyway. I wouldn't say Patty's a Nebraska character, but something more authentic to who he is. So I love that song a lot. Love Gun in Every Home. I mean, it's dark. 2 cars in every garage and a gun in every home. I mean, Springsteen said that in '82 that was maybe being a little exaggerating a little bit, but today it's kind of spot on, which is really depressing. But very strong song. I can see why it wasn't on Nebraska. It doesn't really fit with the theme, but sound-wise is right there. And then we get into Electric Nebraska. So I think the biggest surprise for a lot of people is that this album is not full-on Electric Nebraska, the E Street Band. It doesn't not sound anything like Born in the USA, which you would think they're kind of cut so close together, and he had like half of Born in the USA in the can around this time, that they would sound very similar. They don't, not at all. And in fact, the first 3 song or first song and third song anyway on here, and some others too, sound, I mean, he sounds like he's trying to recreate Nebraska, which he already had, 4-track version of it, especially the song Nebraska, the song Mansion on the Hill. Both of those songs to me sound very, very close to what he had from the 4-track recordings. They seem to me like movie versions. They seem to me like somebody says, "Hey Bruce, I'd love to use your song Nebraska in my movie." And you see oftentimes, they play with kind of different mixes from movies and stuff. It almost seems like that. I mean, it's recorded in his studio, but it's still really skeletal. There's very little instrumentation on it on both of those songs, and I feel like they could work like that way. They're just subtly different. I'm always, especially Nebraska. I love the way his voice distorts. I love everything about that title song. There's no way in hell I'd want to replace that song with Electric Nebraska Take or any of these songs. Really, it's just nice to have them. And I do feel like they could have gotten more commercial potential, but that's not really what he's after. These songs would sort of fit better on a compilation album of Springsteen songs than maybe the original album. Atlantic City's great. It's one of the highlights for me. There's, I think, 3 highlights for me on this Electric Nebraska, and it's one of them. Kind of conventional rock sounding. I think we've heard it. Rock song, we've heard it a lot from, Springsteen's done it live several times with the band, E Street Band. But it works. I think it works. I think that's maybe the one song that might have been kind of aching for a little bit more of a band kind of sound to it. Although, like I said, I wouldn't want to mess with that original record at all. Mansion on the Hill's really cool. Like I said, the other second highlight for me is Johnny 99. Again, it just works as a rock song. Some of these lyrics are different too. There's subtle differences in lyrics. I think he was still playing around with them when he was doing Electric Nebraska, and felt like a lot of the lyrics on the 4-track were sort of, and he said it in the letter to John Landau, were sort of rough lyrics he might want to come back to, but he loved the sound so much, he didn't. But it's kind of interesting, songwriter will play around with lyrics and add extra things, and there are several examples on here where that's the case. Downbound Train, that doesn't do much for me. It's just very rockabilly, very fast. It's interesting. It really makes me appreciate the Born in the USA version. That song is incredible on Born in the USA. You don't really get at the greatness of it on the electric version, or even, to be honest, on the 4-track version. Open All Night, I like a lot. Very much a rockabilly song, very fast. It just doesn't really sound like Springsteen all the time. It's a little, so one song maybe you'd kind of wonder if it was Springsteen if you heard it on the radio. Really cool though. I'm glad we have it. Born in the USA, maybe there are four highlights after this. I forgot about Born in the USA. Born in the USA is great to hear. I mean, there's no lost message on this version. It's crystal clear what it's about. It's not going to be Reagan's campaign theme song or anything like that. Everybody that heard it would know exactly what it's about had they heard this version. It's really fun to listen to. It just rocks, especially after seeing the movie. And I did a video recently on Born in the USA. I do prefer that version with the synth and everything else. Synth is kind of dialed down in the movie version, which I like. The synth thing kind of annoyed me, but there's just something about that song. They got it. I think right for Born in the USA, but it is interesting just to all the history of that song, just how it would have been different with this version. Reason to Believe, I think, is one of the highlights. Reason to Believe, especially if you listen to the song and then you go back and listen to the Nebraska version, it just makes it a little bit more of a fuller experience. He really seems like he's going for something, like he knows it's a closing song now. He's doing it justice. There's a lot to like there. All these songs are very skeletal, even the ones that kind of rock out. They're very seldom with the whole E Street Band. It's usually Gary Tallon on bass, Springsteen on guitar, Max Weinberg on drums, and it just sounds, there's a primalness to it. You know, in the movie, he says that they're gunking it up. The band, not those exact words. There's too many layers. There's too much going on. I felt that way about the majority of E Street Band records. So it's nice that Springsteen actually said that. And it's nice that he made an attempt with these songs to get at something that's just more of a core rock sound, left the saxophone behind, left the keyboards behind. Really cool to hear. And kind of wish he had done more of that kind of stuff. This is not everything. If you read the liner notes to this, they talk about all these sessions of just Springsteen trying these songs, Nebraska songs on his own in a studio. So would love to hear that stuff. I don't think all the 17 original songs that were on the demo tape are all represented here. And there are more versions that he tried of electric versions of these songs. There's only 6 songs of the Nebraska 10 songs on the original record that are represented on Electric Nebraska. If it's really Electric Nebraska, wouldn't you have Used Cars? Wouldn't you have State Trooper? Wouldn't you have Highway Patrolman? And My Father's House? I mean, you know, to call it Electric Nebraska, I think is more like everybody else called it that. I don't think when Springsteen said there is no Electric Nebraska, I don't think he was being disingenuous. You know, he probably knew there's attempts, of course, to do these songs, but he certainly never thought of it as an album. I mean, this is not like Streets of Philadelphia, where it was sequenced and ready to go, or some of those other lost albums. This is very much a 2025 recreation of what was tried at the time. A couple other things about this. He does the whole album by himself in a theater in 2025, Count Basie Theater in New Jersey. I think he does a really good job. I started watching it's included, which is really nice, because sometimes you get this material and it's in a box set and you might get like a Blu-ray, but you won't get the audio files. Really nice that they did press this to vinyl. It's the only thing I haven't listened to, but I did watch and listen to, so I've heard it. The version of the Count Basie Theater with the video, the Blu-ray. And it was really cool to see and hear a older Springsteen, 43 years later doing this material. I didn't think it was especially captivating to watch. When I saw him on Devils and Dust, and especially Goes to Tom Joad, he would do these backing off the microphone and howling and different kind of vocal things that were super impressive to create distance and really kind of work limitations into something that was really incredible. I stopped watching after a while and just listened, and I really enjoyed it. So I think I'm going to enjoy listening to the record of that quite a bit. As much as I like having that recording, and I think I will appreciate, like I said, you could have put more unreleased Nebraska. Bruce Springsteen is always, there's always something a little bit more. It's always kind of teasing us a little bit. There is more Nebraska. So the fascination of this record, the mystery of it, it's only going to grow. And hopefully when Tracks 3 comes out, which is supposed to be kind of a clearinghouse for a lot of music, hopefully all these songs will come out. The electric versions, and especially for me, I'm really curious to hear all of the him alone in a professional studio doing this stuff. So yeah, that's it. A couple things about, oh, I just gotta say it. I don't mean to be a negative person here, but if you do have this set, please listen to the original Nebraska album that's here, because it's the only thing. These pressings are dead quiet. Everything sounds great. Although, to be honest, I have not played the Count Basie record yet. But there is considerable noise, and there's a distortion during Johnny 99, which is totally unacceptable to me. I've actually ordered a replacement. You can kind of see that the box is ding down there too. Pretty bad, actually. I'm not one that small ding or whatever. I don't really care, you know. But this is kind of major, so yeah, I'm not gonna show it to you. But so yeah, I'm gonna be sending it back. I'm just curious if other people are having that problem. It seems to be mixed or mastered, like really mastered, I guess, or pressed really hot, too, and it distorts more than the original, and it almost seems, and again, this could just be my copy. It almost seems like it sounds like the way in the movie that they showed those, or you could kind of hear a little bit of those early pressings of Nebraska when they're trying to get it to work on an album kind of sounded. So not happy at all with the way that the regular version of Nebraska sounds on here. I hope I'm just an isolated incident of that, and I've got a new one, replacement copy on the way. So anyway, what a time to be a Bruce Springsteen fan. Please share your thoughts, what you think about Nebraska. I absolutely love that first disc. It almost seems like a new Nebraska, like another version of it, which is of different songs, which is really cool to hear. The same kind of spooky vibe, which I love. And then, of course, Electric Nebraska. It's really nice to hear the versions with a band, or clearer versions in some cases of songs like Atlantic City and Reason to Believe, and Mansion on the Hill in Nebraska. Just a good time all around. Like I said, it'd be a Springsteen fan. So let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you thought of the movie, all of this stuff. And yeah, thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I've got a ton of other Springsteen videos. I've done a lot this year. If you want to check them out, please do so. Thank you.